All right, welcome back from your meal break. We're glad you're joining us again for... What's so funny about that?
Oh, nothing. It was
just a vibrant welcome back,
yes.
right? I mean,
well, no, it's a little bit of role reversal because I've been talking all day and now you're talking.
Why in the world is Jeremy talking?
Yeah,
it's going to be weird for everybody.
Yeah, it is. It
all
is.
Right. I'm just going to keep on talking though.
Okay.
I'm just going to roll with it.
All right. You want to introduce yourself?
Oh yeah, we're supposed to introduce ourselves?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Christopher. Is that
Say that
confusing?
again.
Oh, let's try that again. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Christopher.
There we go.
We got titles down there.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
There we go.
The titles are right.
Hey, look, I have a name tag.
That's us. We're getting a little bit punchy, as you can tell, but we are coming back to this session on mobile web applications, and I'm going to talk for a little bit now. It's going to be a bit of a different vein than the I don't know, the style of content the way that we segregated it. Mm-hmm. Like I mentioned before, Christopher's talking a little bit more theoretical, and he's taking you through all of the different considerations with good short examples. Here's how to do this. Here's how to do this.
Kind of
things
low
like
level.
That.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And now it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to be jumping into a project and kind of implementing this project. It's actually already done and it's in the GitHub repository. And I can put that link on the screen again for you here. Let me go ahead and type that up. That was at GitHub. I'm just going to type it out here for you. GitHub.com/geektrainer. That's Christopher's handle.
Yep.
/frayed not. Okay, so you guys can go there anytime, clone it, go ahead and fork it if you'd like, and if you want to do a pull request, hey, it's wonderful. It's community coding, right?
Absolutely.
It's an extreme code pairing.
Yep.
Love it. Okay, so that's the repository. Now, what I'm going to start out by talking about is Module 4, setting up the server.
Okay.
So we're kind of dividing my portion into the server and the client. I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day that it's interesting that so long ago we had server-client architecture, and then we realized that we're starting to get some power at our workstations. We were like, let's just do everything at the client, you know? It can do everything.
And now we've kind of flipped all of that. Yeah.
Now there's cloud computing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So the architecture is altogether different. It's really hard for us to keep up.
Just bring back green screens. You know, it
there
makes
you
sense.
go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
Okay, and then the second part I'm going to be talking about the client. So everything that happens on the client device. Okay. So let's go ahead and start off with setting up the server. So my slides are very light. Okay, I have two topics in my slides. Server architecture, I think people will like that. Server architecture and creating the mobile service, all right? So the server architecture, I just want to talk about this from kind of a high level. So let me camp on this for just a second. Server architecture, that's the first section that we're in. And here's what I want to tell you. I want to show you that the architecture that you're used to is to have a cloud service, and you know, if you were doing this 3 years ago, you weren't using a real cloud platform. Maybe you were using just some shared hosting or hosting it yourself or on premises, whatever. Anyway, you've got something in the cloud anyway. And that's where you put your website. You put all the logic of your website there. And then this is going to come down, and if we're talking about 3 years ago, it's coming down to the desktop, right? These guys are not so common, not so popular a few years ago. Maybe I shouldn't say 3, but a few years ago. Yeah, not nearly as common. Okay, but now whenever we create the architecture for our website, we do not usually, and I say usually because I'm just talking about best practices here, we do not necessarily put everything in one cloud instance. Rather, we have our website and then we divide out the API portion of it. The reason why we're going to do that is because there's a really good chance that we're not just going to be creating a website for our information.
Exactly.
We're probably going to be serving this to devices too. So if we knew that we were just going to be landing on this device and this device and this device with HTML and JavaScript, then we would probably just have this one site. But we're not only going to be landing on those from our website, but we also want to write, here's our website, here's an app, okay? We also want to write an app that doesn't need to go up to here.
Right.
Okay? It doesn't need to communicate with that. It's going to communicate directly with the API, and the logic and UI probably, hopefully, mostly just UI, is going to exist right here on the client.
Right. Yep.
Okay, so that's the architecture they're doing. So that's why I just don't want you to feel like it's weird when you see us developing 2 websites for this. I'm developing a website that is my API, and then I'm developing a website that is my client, even though the client happens to be in the cloud. All right. Now, when I was planning this and I was thinking about what our options are for setting up a server, you know as well as I do that there are lots of different options that we can choose from. We could do, and there are obviously a whole lot more than these even, but we could do our ASP.NET MVC. Mm-hmm. We've been doing this for a number of years. Many of us are comfortable with this. If we're in kind of the Microsoft stack space, we're comfortable with the C#, we're comfortable with the MVC pattern. This is happy land for us because whenever we get a project where it's MVC, we're like, all right, I can rock that. You know, I know exactly how to do it. And then along come Web API because, you know, we were so good with MVC that we were able to not only write our actions and our views to address the eyeballs that are looking at this content, but we were able to write actions that returned JSON asynchronously, right?
Yep.
And so we get really good at that, and now we're stacking all these actions in there, and we're having to do a little bit of ceremonial work around conditioning this so that it's not coming back for eyeballs, it's coming back for computers, right? It's coming back for developers that are consuming it programmatically. So that's why Web API was created, because Web API makes it much easier to create an API that is a REST-based API returning nice JSON syntax. It's made for robots. It's made for computers.
Yeah, that way I don't have to use the JSON return type. I can just simply use the Web API.
Yeah. Yep. And this isn't an either or. We've got MVC and Web API that can completely exist in the same exact application. If you have a single web project that you're going to use to target both the people that visit it via their browser and the developers that visit it programmatically via their code, then you would probably sprinkle in the MVC and the Web API logic into your program. Those are 2 ways. Another way we could do this, in modern terms, Node.js. Node.js is fun for when you're comfortable with JavaScript and you want to write JavaScript everywhere. Now you can write it all the way up to the server. And it's fun. Node.js is really, really fun.
Absolutely. And again, we have an MVA on Node.js.
There you go. Just search for Node.js?
Node.js, yeah. It'll, because they just did it 2 weeks ago, so it'll probably be available for on-demand sometime in the next couple of days from today.
Excellent.
So yeah, so just do a search for Node.js.
Excellent.
So, yep.
Node.js in PowerShell is beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, so what are our other options? Well, as opposed to rolling our own service, we could choose to use a backend as a service. BAAS. Now, this term, some folks are not familiar with this term, but a backend as a service, BAAS, as positioned against PAAS or IaaS, backend as a service really means that a lot of work is being done for you, and you're just getting certain services for your app. It's called backend because it's meant to sit behind an application, and all of the platform and infrastructure is pretty much taken care of for you. Okay, so it's going to be a very, very short on-ramp to getting the services that your application needs. And when I'm talking about BAAS, there are a number of them in the market. The first few that popped into my mind were Parse and Buddy and Azure Mobile Services. Okay. And I'm playing a lot with Azure Mobile Services. It's super cool, super fun. There's kind of 2 branches. If you love C#, you can use C# for your Azure Mobile Service. Behind the scenes, that's actually creating a Web API project for you. It's nice because it has offline support, and you get to write your C# end-to-end. It's very good. The JavaScript version is actually just using Node. It's hosting Node in Azure, and everything's being done through Node, and you write JavaScript even on the server. Very fun, okay? I chose to go with, and let me see if I can win at Zoom It. I chose to go with Azure Mobile Services, and specifically with JavaScript, okay? These are some things that I'm comfortable with, and having fun with, and I think that'll be the most value for you guys as we go.
It also just kind of fits since we've been doing JavaScript up until now. We may as well keep using JavaScript.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and really, when you decide to create your own service, you like if you're going to use Web API or MVC or something like that, you're getting more power and flexibility than if you choose a backend as a service. With backend as a service, somebody is telling you how it's going to work, and you need to do it that way. Hopefully, they give you some power and flexibility. I think all the examples I brought up are BASs that do. But inevitably, if you go with your own service, you're going to be able to have more power and flexibility, but it's going to be harder. And you might finish your data tier and then go, oh boy, now what about authentication? What about push notification? What about these other considerations that I know I need to make? And that's something that the backend is going to give you for pretty much for free. Not quite free, but almost. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with this. We're going to create an Azure mobile service so that we have a backend for our app. Now, we haven't explicitly told you about this project that we're going to be working on, although we have brought up the term a few times. We're going to be working on a project called Frayed Knot. Frayed Knot is going to be a mobile application that allows a knot enthusiast, or maybe somebody who's getting into climbing and wants to learn some climbing knots, or learning to tie their shoes, or sailing, or whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah, you
somewhere that involves knots.
Yeah, you need to learn some knots and how to tie them, okay?
Yep.
And it's pretty sparse, it's pretty light, this demo app, but hopefully it includes the basics and what we want to show you about designing for mobile. So let's go ahead and go to my Azure subscription, okay? And we're going to go ahead and log in as me. If you don't have an Azure subscription, it's easy to just go to azure.com and sign up for a free trial. You get a real generous offering for the free trial. It's a no-brainer. If you haven't signed up for it before, just go do that. You'll absolutely love it. My favorite thing about it is the size of this panel over on the left.
It's growing like exponentially.
I know. This scroll bar is getting smaller. Okay, so I'm going to go to mobile services, and you can see I've already got one set up and working, but we're going to pretend like I don't have that, and we're going to create a new one, okay? We're going to, it's already set up to do a mobile service. We're just going to hit create, and we're going to call this Frayed Knot Demo. All right, this is the Frayed Knot that we're doing in the course, and it's called Frayed Knot Demo. And as you can see, we've got a nice little check mark here. This is always nice to see. That means nobody else has taken Frayed Knot Demo. Nobody in the whole world has taken this name. Okay, this is reserved strictly for us.
For us.
And we are going to get a URL automatically built for us. We're going to get this top-level domain. We're going to get frayedknotdemo.azuremobile.com. azure-mobile.net. Now, do we want a database? Yeah, we're going to need a database, okay? Because Azure Mobile Services gives you the opportunity to have data, and we want data to sit behind it. I'm actually going to choose to create a new SQL database. You do have the ability to create a free 20 meg database that doesn't rack up any charges at all. The SQL databases are quite cheap. You can go look at the pricing calculator and see how cheap they are. And especially since I'm just using credit, I just like to create regular databases. I'm not spending real money here. And then I'm going to choose JavaScript as the backend instead of .NET. If I chose .NET, that would give me my C#. So here's my JavaScript. It's going to call my database frayedknotdemo_db.
Okay, that makes sense.
I actually like to rename this, give it the same database name as my service name, but that's just me. That's available. I have a couple of database servers, and I'm just going to choose this one because I remember the password for it. There it is. And I'm going to hit check down here. Check. There it is. Now this is provisioning. It's spinning it up. It's creating a node service. It's publishing it. It's doing all this hard work for me.
And,
right?
you know, one of the things I sometimes hear is people looking at that and going, wow, that, takes forever. It takes like 4 minutes. And all I'm thinking is, well, think about how long it would take if you had to build this from scratch on your own.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that would take you, a couple hours, maybe even the entire day. And 4 minutes and
doing
we'll be
plenty
done.
of work for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, it could take you directly into the one that I already have created here, the Frayed Knot that I have created, but I'm confident that this is going to come back in approximately 7 seconds.
Okay. While it's doing its thing, it's also worth highlighting that down towards the bottom of that wizard, there was also an option to do push notifications. So if you wanted to do push notifications and incorporate that, then you could do that through your service.
Well, now, the push notifications, if I'm not mistaken, will still be available.
It'll be available, yeah. Yeah, you just have to go back.
I believe that checkbox, was that to use standard push notifications as opposed to the notification hub?
Yes, and it'll automatically set that up for you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just have to go back and.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, the Azure Mobile Services had a push notifications kind of built into them, and then we created this notification hub some time ago, and the notification hub is a superset. It's more powerful. And so the the Azure Mobile Services kind of adopted that as their model, and that's you're getting one out of the box whenever you create a mobile service.
We've stalled long enough.
Yeah, look at that. We talked about whatever we needed to get this to finish. Okay, now you can see that we've got our URL over here, and if I click on it, it's going to actually navigate to that URL, which is just a landing page that says, hey, your mobile service is running. That's great.
Fantastic.
Now let's go into that and see what it gives us. So if I click on it, it navigates in. This is a point of a little bit of confusion in my experience with some people. This is actually one of the options at the top. So this is kind of like you're getting started quickly, and this is your dashboard. Those are different. So sometimes when you're like, where was that? And you look at the links at the top, remember to look back at this link. What you were looking for may have been there. That's just an aside. So we've got a mobile service that's set up, and this dashboard gives us some kind of the high-level status and information about it. But the thing of note here in this mobile service is that the features of the back end that it's made for us are showing right here along the top. I get data. I get the ability to create API methods. I get a scheduler, so I can schedule a job to happen every 15 minutes or every night or something like that. I get push notifications via the notification hub, so I get the ability to do notifications, that's toasts and tile updates and raw notifications, all of those, to Windows phones, Windows 8 machines, iOS devices, Androids, all of those. I get identity, meaning I can authenticate via Microsoft account, Azure Active Directory, Google, Twitter, and Facebook.
Okay,
that should cover it.
Yeah.
And then I get some configuration and some logs for troubleshooting, things like that. Okay, so we're going to be kind of heavy on the data and API, and we're not really going to touch on the others so much. So I'm going to go to data, and I'm going to add a table. Now, this is one thing that you have to do in the console. You can't do this through your code.
Okay.
Because it's really a kind of a security thing. You know, like you don't want in your code to be creating new tables. That's one thing that you do need to do through the console. So just like the real one that we're going to jump to, this is kind of like the Easy Bake oven, you know. We're going to work on the ingredients here, but then I'm going to go pull the other one out of the oven. Okay, so we're going to make a knots table. Now, by default, in order to access this knots table, I have to authenticate with the application key. I'm going to turn that off for everyone, for inserts and updates. Okay, I don't want any Joe to be able to delete a record from my database right now, but if you're ambitious and you want to go insert a record into my database by following along what I'm doing, you would have the rights to do that. Because I am saying right now that you don't need any authentication whatsoever in order to do that. All right? Does that sound dangerous?
A little bit.
It's going to be shifting sand. I'm going to be trying to show something, and people are going to be changing them underneath my feet. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and check that, and a knots table is created. You can see that it's kind of setting it up, but that won't take nearly as long to set that up as did the mobile service, because that mobile service took it must have been 45 seconds to
I know, it was crazy.
Okay, so I've created a knots table. I've put the permissions on it that I want. That's all I've done so far, and now I want to show you something really cool. I'm going to take you to my, I'm going to clear the screen so that's not overwhelming. I'm going to take you to my PowerShell. And I've got my PowerShell only slightly, don't know the right word, but modified. This is a mod job where if I go into my PowerShell profile, you can see that I'm doing a few things just to kind of initialize them and make sure they're ready. And I've got these functions in here like get that I created as a wrapper function around this invoke web request, and post. So it's really easy for me from my PowerShell to do gets and posts.
Okay.
So super slick, right? Okay, so in here I can say get www.microsoft.com. And it comes back with the response to a web request to Microsoft.com.
Okay.
Kind of slick, right?
That seems simple enough.
Yeah, it's just again a wrapper around that invoke web method, but it's super handy. Okay, so let's recall our Frayed Knot demo. That's the one we just created. AzureMobile.net, and probably you would create a nice domain for your like api.frayedknot.com, but frayedknot.com is taken, I'm afraid.
You're afraid?
I'm afraid.
See what you did there.
Yeah. Rest assured it was intentional. So this is our URL, and I want to get from here. What do you suppose that's going to give me?
That little landing page that we saw earlier.
Yeah, right. That's going to give me the landing page. In fact, it's going to be a little bit ugly. Because there's going to be an image embedded right into it. That's a binary base64 encoded image. So that's not what I wanted. I wanted to travel into the tables and get the knots.
So that's the table that you just created.
That's the table I just created, absolutely. Table, let me get that a little bit bigger. Tables, knots. So all of the tables I create are under tables, and I called mine knots, so it's under knots. And there we go. Now that's going to take a little bit of time to spin up that node service the very first time, and then this same call is going to be super fast. Wow. What's going on here? Unauthorized, invoke web request. Did I
I don't. Did you set up the read to be everybody?
I believe I did. On this table, permissions. I didn't. Thank you so much. That was a demo. That was
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we did that on purpose. See,
Thank you.
So that's what happens when you're not authenticated, is you get that error message.
So there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
And I think what I meant to say was that I wanted everyone to be able to insert and read and not necessarily update.
Oh, okay.
Because then people can really shift the sand underneath my feet. Okay, there you go. You guys can feel free to insert records into this table. Okay, so now if I come back here and I say tables, knots, just
Take
do
two.
a get.
Yep.
Take two. And once again, needs to do a little bit of spinning up here. I'll do the same request twice in a row, and you can see that it'll be quite quick. Now, can you see what it returned?
Nothing. Well, it returned an empty array.
Yeah, look at that. That's kind of that's exactly what I would expect.
Yeah.
And notice this doesn't have a soap wrapper around it or anything like this. You know, it doesn't have anything. It's just two square braces. I love that. It's just returning an empty array. Now, if I want to insert something, I'm going to need to use post, and I can do that with post. Frayed, not demo, Azure, mobile, net. My fingers aren't real fluid today, so you just have to bear with me. And now I get to give it a body. Now I created this post, remember, as a wrapper around the invoke web method. And I just said I'm going to put an object in there. And how about if I say, first name? I'll just pick a. I was going to think of something fun, but I decided not to. Now, first name, this is JSON, right? So how do I need to format JSON?
Colon.
Yeah, I need to have a colon. And we'll say, I'm going to need some quotes here, right?
Single quotes, yep.
And is that valid JSON? Almost. But actually, I need quotes around this as well.
That's right. Yep.
That's valid JSON. And in fact, to be honest, I haven't tested it where I had the single quotes in here and the double quotes on the outside. I'm not sure if it'll work or not.
It should.
Let's give it a try. It didn't like that. Expected the token double quote inside there. So JSON does in fact want double quotes all the time. I had not tried that backwards. There we go. Okay,
Perfect.
So now notice that what it returned to me was the thing I gave it plus an ID. It used a GUID as an ID there, as a surrogate ID, and it returned that to me. So now if I wanted to do something with that object, I would be able to. And if I go into my knots table and I look at the data, there's Joe and there's his ID.
So it just automatically created a column for you.
That's right. Cool. And if I go back and look at the configuration for my mobile service, you can see that I have enabled dynamic schema turned on. We call that dynamic schematization. What that means is that whenever I push objects into my tables, they automatically get names for them.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm going to jump you, in the interest of time, over to the one that I already have baked. Let's look at this data real quick. I've got knots.
Out of the oven.
Yep, this one's out of the oven. It's all delicious. Okay, now I've got a few more columns here, and I've got 3 knots in my table.
Okay.
Bowline, reef knot, and sheet bend, and these have categories in them. Now, do I want to create a separate table to store my categories? I don't. My categories are really whatever categories have been used. So that's kind of a calculated list of functions. You could say if knots was a table in my SQL database, if I'm using the SQL analogy, then I want to create a stored procedure that returns a aggregated list of all of the unique list of all of the categories that have been used.
Okay.
And
Give
in
you a
order
little more
to do
flexibility.
that, in order to do that, I'm going to use the API.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to API.
So you're just adding methods onto this with that API. Okay.
Yep, and you can see that I have two. This is called an API in mobile services terminology. Really, what it is it's a operation on the API, and I'm going to show you the categories operation. Now, the categories API or categories operation is a collection of scripts.
Okay.
Whichever scripts you want, and you can use a get, and if you want, you can also create a post. Okay, but I'm just doing a get. There's no post to this.
Okay.
You can't add a category by adding it into categories because what not would be assigned that category? It wouldn't make any sense.
Right.
We just want to be able to read them. So I'm simply saying, okay, I want to do a get. Here's access to my request and response. This looks like typical Node.js if you're familiar with it. And then I want to access my tables, get the knots, read it, and when it's successfully been read, I want to take that knots object, I want to map it and return the category name and then distinct that. Whoa. So a few things going on there, don't worry. The code's all right there. It's already been written, so you don't have to worry about it. But I'm basically returning a nice 200 with a distinct list of categories.
So this isn't SQL, so you can't just simply do a select distinct. You actually have down below the algorithm for going in and finding the distinct items.
And the fact is, there is an API in Azure Mobile Services for just doing SQL calls.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
And so we could have done that, but I don't feel like that would have been JavaScripty enough for my standards.
Okay.
Yeah.
JavaScripty enough.
Yep.
Okay.
I've gotten to show off a nice distinct function. You know, I get to, this is my joy. So
We need a bubble sort.
that's right. Now, just like the tables, I get to set permissions on all of these, and I've opened up the categories permissions for get to everyone. All right. So now, just like in order to call the tables, I said get, and then I used my URL /tables/knots. I'm going to say get API categories.
And don't forget to update the URL at the beginning because you still have Afraid Not demo.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
That was going to hose me. Okay, so I'm going to get from that /API/categories, and look at that.
So there's all the categories. And so again, rather than going to the tables directly like you did last time, this time you're going into that categories, which was an API, or basically like a stored procedure.
Yep.
Okay.
And then it is going over to the tables to figure out what it needs to know. So this is basically my chance as the API architect or designer to say, here's how I want it to look to the people that are going to consume this.
Perfect.
And I won't dive into it, but you do need to know that there's another one of these services in Azure that's called the API management, and it's super slick. Let me see if I can even find it here. Not that one. Really, you can do this hover in your own time.
Yeah. We get the point.
The API Manager allows you to put a wrapper around your API that gives you an interface for developers that are coming to consume it, and it allows you to do some metering and do some intelligence. It's a layer of abstraction, and it also allows you to even map your calls to something that's exactly like what you want it to look like. So super exciting, the API management. Actually, if you want to go check out API management, it might be a good opportunity to check out my podcast code chat. I think it's 006, where I interview, if it's not 6, it's 5, where I interview, it's 5. That's a good one too. Where I interview Josh Twist, who's talking about the Azure API management, and that should be a good watch for you. He does a very good job of describing it.
Well, fantastic.
Okay, so we have now created a backend. We've created tables, created an API so that we're able to call it. We successfully called from the tables and the API. We posted into the tables directly, and so this server is it's getting all set up, right? Now, one of the things that I wanted to highlight and make sure that you realize is that when you do this get from, say, the tables directly, there's a subset of OData that's implemented in this REST-based API.
Okay.
So when I get all my knots, look at all that information. Remember how I told you it's nice to limit your column set?
Yep.
I only have 3 knots, so big deal, and I only have about 4 columns, so big deal.
Yeah, but you should still get into a good practice there.
That's exactly right. So let's say I was only interested in the name right now. Here's an example of the name. This one's called Bolin, and this one's called Reef Knot, and I really don't need all this other information, okay?
Right.
So let's just get that. So I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to add on to my URL, select equals name.
And going back to what you mentioned earlier this morning, so that OData, that's an open standard, and it's a standardized way of going in and querying the data through your HTTP calls.
And anybody in their REST-based service could implement these types of operations, and they would be implementing the OData standard.
Right.
Now you may as well. It's pretty robust. There's lots of cool stuff that can be done in there. You may as well just not reinvent the wheel. But
Right.
Now, Christopher, I have not tried what I'm about to do.
Okay.
So I think that you qualified a couple of your demos with I know this is going to fail. I have to qualify this with I have absolutely no idea.
All right, well, we're going
I'm
to find out.
pretty sure it's going to work.
All right, only one way to find out.
Oh, and yeah, it did not work.
There we go. Even ampersand.
We just had an
Oh,
explosion.
wait, you had question marks?
Did I do it right?
Yeah, that looks good to me.
Yeah, I must be missing something.
Select equals name. Okay.
Anyway, that's supposed to work.
Right.
Ping me offline, and I will find out what I was supposed to do there and didn't. But I just get excited about those OData verbs and like to show them off. Okay, so that is a service that's all set up for us. Now, this is ready to be used in our app. The good thing about using Azure Mobile Services, and actually, if you're creating a REST-based API, you're doing a lot of work toward being cross-platform ready. But if you use Azure Mobile Services, you're one step even closer to being cross-platform ready, because when I go over here, I get to choose the platform that I'm going to consume this Azure Mobile Service with. And this is essentially an SDK that's already been written for all the major platforms.
Oh, wow.
You write your backend one time, you use it in your website, so you're using you're accessing it with HTML and JavaScript. And then down the road, when you decide that it's time to make a native mobile app for that same exact API, you just go get the SDK for it, and you're talking to the same exact backend.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. All right, so what else we got here? We created the API method, we added the data, we created the Azure Mobile Service, we got the server set up. I believe that about wraps it up on that topic.
Okay.
Already, that ended a little bit shorter. But that's good.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so what we saw there was how to go in and create that backend and use Azure Services to get all of those tables set up, how we could easily throw in data, and also in turn how we could go get the data out.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then in that case, what do you say we take 10, and then we'll come on back and we'll take a look at the client side.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, perfect. We'll see you guys in 10.